You're a startup founder. You think your product is amazing and feel like more people should be buying, but the road is long and slow. It feels like you're stuck. There's always one thing I ask startup founders. Have you talked to your customers? They almost always say, heck yes, we talk to our customers all the time. But what I find is they're either selling or trying to improve their product. These are not customer-focused conversations. If we can get curious about our customers, then we can uncover critical insights that will help us build to the next round. I'm Anna Firmenov, and welcome to Building with Buyers, a show about startup growth where I'll explore how customers help startups build to the next round.
Hi, Erin, you are here.
I'm here.
Yes, from across the ocean. And I'm so glad that you're joining me. Erin Balsa is founder of Bland to Bold. You recently changed the name of your company, Bland to Bold. It's a new website. I feel like it's just like a new you. Do you have this like feeling of a fresh start?
I do. New year, new energy. So I still, at this point, I am keeping House of Bold as the company name. And I'm, leading with Bland to Bold as my website. So I am redirecting all the traffic from House of Bold website to Bland to Bold. I'm planting my flag around that term. And it's something I've been talking about so much for the last few years, and especially all throughout 2024 in my daily newsletter, talking about moving up the content spectrum from the bland side further to the bold side. So I was on a call with our mutual friend, Nick Bennett, and he's like, yeah, like, what the hell are you doing? Go get the domain name. And I'm like, all right, dude, I'm going to do it. So I hung up the phone with him and I got the domain name. And 30 days later, I have a new website and this new sub brand. And I have so much more energy. It's exciting.
That's really exciting. Okay, so what you focus on is courses and consulting for B2B marketers to transform content from bland to bold. So no wonder you named it Bland to Bold. Not a
Right.
surprise.
Not surprised.
Yeah, so you were on the show. If the listener wants to go back to episode 203, we talked about hashing out the perfect content strategy visual framework. There's a lot of advice out there on content strategy. I'm a very visual person. So actually, during the podcast episode, we were looking at visual material and talking through a visual framework, which, it's a podcast episode. What I did was kind of make like clips for LinkedIn, but I get it. Listening to it and being like, I just want to see it. I think I uploaded it as a video though, so that should be helpful. But episode 203. And so building with buyers, this podcast, I'm exploring the role that customers play in helping startups build to the next round. But every so often, I will want to have a bit of a different conversation, right? It still ties in, but it's different. So I want to set the record straight on some terminology. Because as you know, Erin, people like to toss around words and they feel like they know what they're talking about. And so we were emailing back and forth about this. And so these are the words that I just want to set the record straight. There's positioning, messaging, category design, and strategic narrative. Okay. So positioning, I think of like April Dunford, right? Like who are the leaders in this arena where people know about them? Positioning, I think of April Dunford. Category design, I think of Christopher Lockhead, who's been on the show. April has also been on the show. And strategic narrative, Andy Raskin, also he has been on the show. So let's just start by defining each of these. I just want to like stop the confusion. People are using these terms, I think, interchangeably, but they're different, and also talk about what's the right path to take.
Yeah, God, it's so confusing. Imagine being like a newer marketer and these are all thrown at you, usually kind of out of context, or you're hearing them, or if you're a founder for a business and you have to figure all this shit out and hire and manage employees and build your product and it's very confusing. I want to preface this with I am not a positioning expert. I'm a marketer. So I am just telling you how I understand it through my experience working with different companies who have gone through these activities. I have never led a positioning activity or exercise. I can only talk to my understanding. And a lot of my understanding I got from April Dunford, people like her that are real true leaders in this space, right? So I think a lot of us have read Obviously Awesome. She has some really visual, tactile examples that stick in your head and help you to understand the concept of positioning. So I think of it as a strategy that helps your customers understand you and your unique value in a context, right? So they're not like, oh, such and such company provides this thing, and I don't have any context to ground my understanding in, right? So April gave this great example about cake on a stick. Think about cake, right? So cake, you eat it at birthday parties. You're typically like sitting down at a table. It's usually a pretty big slice. It's on a plate. You use a fork, take your time,
Yum.
enjoy the
I'm
cake.
getting hungry.
Yeah, sorry. And when you're, trying to innovate, maybe you have this great idea. Oh, I'm going to take a small ball of cake. I'm going to stick it on a stick. And if you tell people, hey, look, everyone, I'm selling cake on a stick, right? So nobody wants cake on a stick because they're like, well, I don't want small cake. I want a big piece of cake. And what the hell's a stick all about, right? So, okay, same product, small ball of cake on a stick. But instead of grounding your product within the category of cake, you decide to position yourself in a different category, which is lollipops. And now you're not cake on a stick, you're a cake pop. So people naturally look at your product through the contextual lens of their understanding of lollipops. Lollipops are supposed to be eaten on the go. Great, I can eat my cake pop on the go. Lollipops are supposed to be a quick, light treat. They're not going to fill you up and be heavy in your stomach, right? So there's a lot of value in that and being able to not only just say, oh, we're valuable because we're a quick snack or you can eat us on the go. But if you're saying that you're cake, I don't want to necessarily eat cake on the go because in my mind, that's really messy. And, I might not want what you're selling me unless you can present it within the right wrapper. And so positioning yourself starts with understanding what category you want to play in.
Okay. So that makes sense. When I work on positioning, I actually really like to use this positioning canvas, which again, this is from April and I think is genius. It has everything all. I'm a visual person. If you haven't already heard me say that multiple times in this episode, but it really just like makes it easy to see everything in one snapshot. So you can see the category that we're playing in. You can see the competition right there. You can see our top differentiating benefits, value to the buyer. You can see top unique features for the buyer. You can see how do we recognize that this is the target buyer, right? So in this positioning canvas, you kind of have everything there. Like, where are we playing this game? Who's the competition that might be also playing in this game? Because a lot of the work that I do, we don't start new categories. Like that's really difficult to do. And not all companies want to do that. Sometimes they do, of course, but that makes sense. We start with the category and that's in that visual. But I think you're right when you say that you have to position yourself in someone's mind. Like, what do I compare this to? Is there anything that I can compare this to? And also, how is this different within that frame of reference? So that's what positioning is. And if you think about positioning statements, which some people like and some people don't, I think no matter if you like them or not, they do ground you in for who is this for?
Right. We are the X for Y.
Yeah, we are the X for Y. For people that have this certain problem, this product is, this is how we explain it. And this is the like top 3 unique benefits of this product. So it's like really easy and easy to remember. And I think that's the most important thing is make it easy to understand, easy to remember for you to actually use that
Right.
wherever you want to talk about your company, your product. So great, that's positioning.
And I think we have to talk about category creation or category design next, because within the activity of positioning, which is a meaty thing to do, thank God for visuals that help to guide folks like yourself who do the positioning work. Within that, toward the early side is deciding what category you're going to be in. So you need to kind of start there. So category design is when you create a new category, a new market category that does not yet exist. And that's something that I was fortunate enough to be a part of, a team who tried to create a category. We designed a category and a discipline back at the Predictive Index back in 2018. At the time, we were looking, so we were a tool that had a couple different functionalities, but was really known as a pre-assessment hiring tool, even though we were growing and evolving to be so much more. So we were looking at the HR market for HR tech is like extremely crowded. And within that huge market, there are, the sub markets, pre-assessment tools, for example, employee engagement tools. There's just so many. And so we said, well, we could create this new tool and it actually spans the length of all these subcategories because you can use it for diagnosing engagement and improving engagement. You can use it for pre-employment hiring. Once you have those butts in seats, you can use it for inspiring and managing your employees. And then, as your organization evolves and you have to stay agile and adapt to changing times, you can even use this tool to assemble teams that have the right behavioral characteristics to match your strategy and who you need on different teams in the organization. So we decided to create this category called talent optimization. And it was really hard. We all started by reading the book, Play Bigger. And we were lucky to work with a firm that helped the predictive index. And it was a firm that was started by one of the authors of Play Bigger. So we really had the big guns in. And it was really cool to see how that can work when you're working with some people that truly know what they're doing. And it was really cool. But it's a hard thing to do. Most companies that set out to create a category, they're really designing a category, but a lot of people would argue that you didn't truly create it unless it's been adopted by the analysts and others are playing in your category and that category is recognized. So that's just a good distinction there. That said, there is a ton of value in designing a category still. There's a ton of value in coining a term. There's all these activities you can do that can help you get a lot of attention and get your audience to think differently and associate you as a thought leader, a credible industry expert. So even if it doesn't really get adopted at the end of the day, you can still get a lot of value out of the activity.
Yeah, I've had startups on the show, even seed startups, that they were like, it was just not possible for us to position ourselves unless we defined this other category because there was no category for us. So
Yeah,
that I think is just like, okay, that makes sense that you would create a category but it's hard because you have to educate people around that category. So instead of your marketing material being around the product and the benefits, the value to the buyer and all that stuff, right? It's educating like, what is this category? Right. It's not that it's impossible. It's just that you're spending a lot of resources and time and effort and money on educating people around the category. All right. So that's category design. Awesome example. And then there's messaging. So sometimes people interchangeably use like positioning and messaging. They're two different things.
totally.
If you do position, if you figure out your positioning work, you're not done. Positioning is something that is, I believe, behind the scenes. You don't really talk to people like, well, for people like you that have this problem, this tool is XYZ. Like that's weird, right? You wouldn't go up to somebody in the elevator and start talking to them like that. So that's where messaging comes in.
The way that it works in my brain is that your positioning comes first, and you sometimes would end up doing your category design as part of your positioning exercise. Once that is done, then I would move into the strategic narrative exercise. A lot of companies start with something really small and boil down. I talked to one person on my old podcast who actually did create a category that was adopted by the analyst. She was very intelligent, and she's like, all you really need is one slide, one really tight slide. And the strategic narrative can start as a slide. It can start as a really short sales story, and you can kind of make it be a sales deck and start having these conversations. And the whole kind of point of a strategic narrative is to get people bought in to the fact that you understand their problem deeply, this new way of doing things, and the people that are still doing it the old way are going to get left behind. And there's this new, better way to do things. And you want to really like have them feel the pressure and the stakes of not taking action. Because we all know that status quo is like the biggest reason that deals are lost. People just don't do anything, don't take action. So the strategic narrative can really help to bust through that decision to maintain the status quo. It's really just like problem, new way, old way, new way, tease the promised land, and then you start talking about your solution, and then you use the proof to show that you can actually back up that you can get the results that these people want.
So it's really like a story.
Yeah, it's like it's a story, and it usually follows the same kind of rough framework. Andy Raskin has the sales deck. That's like the way he does it. It's the greatest sales deck ever. It's a great blog. If you're listening and you've never read it, definitely read it. But you can also take that narrative and you can grow it and make it longer. And that's when I think about the messaging piece, which I think of after the narrative.
Got it. Yeah. So do you think strategic narrative and category design have overlapping parts?
Yeah, I think in your head, as you're talking about why you want to be in this new category, you're definitely talking about the new way, right? Because category design is all about this new way in this promised land. And it's all about poking holes in the current way, which the old way. The old way is the current way. It's the way people are doing things now. And it's creating them a lot of pain. And you have this kind of magic secret. With category design, too, I think it's important to specify that it could be just a product like Spanx, but usually it's a product and this new way of doing business. So, like, one of the classic examples of category design would be like, remember those old red boxes you could go to rent a DVD? Like, you no longer had to
Redbox.
yeah, I think so. You no longer had to go to like a special video store. You could just at the grocery store on your way out with your bags, get your DVD. And then of course we had Netflix, which was the next iteration, this new way of doing things. So that is category design. So for sure, it's all about telling this story, but you might not have it completely fleshed out 100% when you're coming up with the category. You might not even know the name of the category yet. I remember when I was working at Predictive Index, the decision to name the category took so long. It was such a big freaking deal. And we for sure had all of our thoughts down in this big, huge doc. But that wasn't our true strategic narrative. That was just like, here's all these things that we think. And then we're going to then write the strategic narrative and be really thoughtful about it.
See, I think category design and strategic narrative are so similar. The only thing that strategic narrative doesn't force you to do is name a new category. I think that they do both talk about the same and they're so overlapping.
For sure.
The other thing is like these people don't necessarily like play nice together. So like I'm sure they're friends but like on LinkedIn, they're not always, I don't think that they play nice together because they're so passionate about, and I get it, right? They're passionate about the path that they know, the path that they've built, right? So which path? I mean, like when we talked about all of these and you just kind of started to allude to the fact that you just go step by step. Like first you need to have your category and then you create your positioning. And then from there you can talk about your strategic narrative. Strategic narrative also is part of like when we talk about why do you exist, right? That's part of it. Why are you here? What are you doing on this planet? Who are you trying to help? Why do you exist? Who are you for? What are you building for them? That's all part of the story too.
Yeah. And it's a good point that it's all about the emotional aspect of the sale. So I think that's a huge key piece because a lot of smaller startups, they're all about their product. They all think their product is like the world's most incredible thing. Oh my God, there's never going to be anything like it. But truthfully, before you know it, there's 30 competitors building, rapidly iterating on their feature sets, looking really similar. So you're going to have to connect sometimes through your story because a customer might have 3 different tools that could do the job for them, right? So I think that story is really important there. And messaging is like a key part to that. So there's also, I know you were talking about the April Dunford's positioning canvas. There's also like a messaging canvas that a lot of companies use. And they might take the narrative work that they've done and boil it down into a tagline or an elevator pitch. And you kind of go from there.
Yeah, the way I like to handle messaging is that's where once we've nailed down positioning, like category, right? And like why do we exist, the strategic narrative stuff, then we go into the messaging, like straight into creating the website. Because what better place to start to put your messaging up than your website? You have to talk about everything. You have to talk about why do you exist? You have your About Us page, you've got your home page that's trying to explain really quickly what is this thing I'm building and who it's for, the top benefits to the value for the buyer. So the messaging is right there on the website. And so that's super helpful for the team to come back to the website and be like, oh yeah, that's how we talk about it. That's how we describe it. And so that's what I like to do is just start with the website and make sure if you have it ready to go and need to update it, tweak a few words, that's fine. Usually it's like we need to create new pages because we weren't talking about ourselves in the right way or showing the right images on the website. So we just talked about which path. There is no which path. It's like you got to do all of these things, not necessarily name a new category, right? But positioning.
Maybe don't do that.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, it's awesome, right? Christopher Lockhart has been on a few times on this show, and the companies that are able to do it successfully, they go above and beyond in terms of like how big they get. And so, of
And
course,
I got to say, it was a lot of fun. Like being part of a team that was doing this whole new thing and educating a market and building a certification and getting all these people bought in to this new way and seeing like the search volume for this new discipline rise over time. It was so cool. So there's also that aspect, like team engagement, getting people really pumped up to execute your vision and bring this category and this new product to market. There's something to be said for that.
yeah. What do you think is the hardest of these four things that we mentioned? What's the hardest to do, and why do you think that is? Like positioning, messaging, category design, strategic narrative. I think I might know the answer already, but
I don't know because I don't do positioning or category design, so I cannot speak to that. I don't know that I'm qualified to say what's the most difficult without having firsthand experience in doing the latter half.
yeah, I mean, for me, I think like the most difficult is category design, just because to do it, like maybe coming up with a name, you can do it, that's fine, right? Maybe it's not 100% what you use, maybe you tweak it over time, but like getting it out there and getting people to adopt and educating people around what this is, I think that's really hard to do. I'm not saying it's not worth it, but it's hard to do. Another question I have for you is I guess I wanted to ask you about messaging, but really what I want to ask is around content, right? How do you make sure
Okay.
that content is unique, valuable, and consistent? How can startups do a good job at this?
For me personally, I have my own kind of signature approach, which starts with what I call signature ingredients. I feel like every brand needs to establish their signature ingredients. So, what the hell are signature ingredients? Okay, let's just hit them quickly. A strategic narrative. A lot of times I'm helping companies write, and I call it an editorial narrative because it's something that is usually like a 2-page doc, and it's a story that you can use to build your content strategy. And when you are getting new writers onboarded, they have this story that they can understand and they can create content that's not just like this disjointed, a blog on this and a blog on this, and you don't really see that red line, that through line. The strategic narrative, that's the through line that connects all of your content. So you're telling a cohesive story. Every time someone engages with your brand, they're gaining a deeper understanding of your content, all the way from the problem you solve to the solution, this new and better way to do things, right through to your proof and your customer stories. It all hits on the same note because it's all connected by that story. That's the first part of the signature ingredients.
I just wanted to say strategic narrative also, that's your point of view, right? Like when you ask like what's your story, it's like, well, what's your point of view on the market and what's happening?
Hmm.
And where are we falling short? And what do
Yeah,
you recommend we do differently? And then talk about how your product solves for that different. That's what it is.
exactly. Yeah, I don't know. I think we're coming up on time, so I don't know if I should go into my whole spiel about signature ingredients. People can like,
I wanted to like make sure that you had enough time to talk about your signature ingredients, but it sounds like you did. Erin, thank you so much. That was awesome. I hope, set the record straight on some of these terms that people toss around. That
yeah,
was my goal here. If the listener wants to find Erin on LinkedIn, she is Erin Balsa. And to visit Bland to Bold, which is her new website, you got to check it out. It is awesome. It is definitely not bland. You can go to blandtobold.co.
not .com. Somebody beat me to it, but it's just a website in like purgatory. It's just like being held there, held for ransom. So who knows what that's going to be? All I know is I got mine live first, baby.
That's amazing. All right. Well, thank you, Erin. You're wonderful. Thanks so much.
So are you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Building with Buyers. New episodes drop weekly, so make sure you're following wherever you get your podcasts. You can find me on LinkedIn, Anna Furmanov. Visit my website to learn more about how to turn customer insights into positioning and messaging your buyers will understand. FurmanovMarketing.com. And don't forget to leave a review if you're loving the show.